Okay. This is how you leave it, or are you gonna zoom it in?
No, I'm gonna leave it like that. Do you want it zoomed in? I've been trying different things. The guys that have been doing the
I
editing
would
say that if I leave it out, then they can
zoom.
adjust it more, especially since there's two of us.
Okay.
That makes
Chase
sense.
says we could maybe zoom in, but I don't know.
I don't see. Jesus.
That's okay. You don't have to. All right. Chase, what's your last name again?
Long, Long.
That's easy.
Yeah.
Chase Long with Goosehead, finally, an insurance agent on here. And we're having Ina Kyle on because she specifically asked if she could be on just because she wanted to ask some specific insurance questions. So, typically what I do, I say this every time so that people are kind of familiar with what we're trying to accomplish with the podcast. And, we're basically bringing in people who are commission-based or self-employed because, well, we're all kind of, in the same boat as far as the way that we generate business, the way that we, have to budget and market and all of that kind of stuff. And so doing a podcast like this, I've really just been vocal about the fact that, you can be really good at what you do or even have a ton of experience, but you need to be doing stuff like this so that you can make sure that people can, remember you or recognize you when they look for your services. So being an insurance agent, obviously a lot of commission, a lot of selling associated with that and all of that. So we try to keep it entrepreneurial, but also focused on real estate. So I know for you, it's going to be easy because a lot of what you do is with residential real estate, but we'll take it from the top. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do, how long you've been in the business, and, who that kind of client is not ideal, but who you're normally working with.
Yeah. So my name's Chase. I've worked at Goosehead Insurance for about 3.5 years now. My insurance experience is almost at 8 years. And kind of what I do is normally I work with your everyday client that owns a home. They obviously have autos that they drive, so I can help with their home insurance and auto insurance and any other business that they may have. I can even help with clients that are renting or in that process. Also, clients that are investing that have rental properties and things like that. Goosehead itself is a nationwide broker. So no matter the state that you're in, we can offer a policy for, and that policy could be, for anything for home, auto, or some type of rental property as well.
Right on. So 8 years, I would envision that you're doing things a little bit differently now than you were, or that you are 8 years later. What seems to be some of the things that you're doing now that's helping you build your business? And then is that different than what you were doing from the beginning? Kind of chat a little bit about that for the people who maybe haven't been doing this as long as you.
Yes. So I was the type of person that I thought I could be that guy with the personal network. All my friends were going to help me everywhere. It was going to be, so quick, so instant. I clearly realized that wasn't going to happen as fast as I thought it was. Of course, friends help out, but, you've really got to put the pedal to the metal in what you want in life and really, go after it yourself. I quickly realized that I needed to, make sure someone knew my name, what I did, and kind of how I did that. Being like working with the client and they're seeing their experience and talking about that experience, and that's kind of how I started to change. And then looking at realtors that were near me and loan officers doing good work. I didn't say near me on that one because loan officers that do good work stand out to me, and that's something that I really try to think about when choosing someone because they're going to put that client in a much better spot financially if they're working with someone that really knows the business.
Sure. What seems to be kind of the thing right now in your business that you're running into where if you could just make almost like a public service announcement to all of your potential clients, you'd say, hey, I'm seeing a lot of this, and here's like how you could either save yourself money or save yourself time. Is there anything you're kind of identifying that's going on right now in this market?
Yes. So currently, we've had quite a lot of claims in the industry. So rates are going higher because those carriers paid out for their loyal clients to get their homes and autos fixed. So those rates going up, we're seeing a lot of carriers asking for documentation or proof of what's going on. So that's crucial to have that ready. But at the same time, you need to be able to shop your insurance at any point. If your carrier is going up, you need to check the market to see if something else is out there. Because some other carriers maybe didn't have that many losses as yours currently. They could have a better rate and better price for you specifically.
And you mentioned identifying documentation and everything along those lines. Can you kind of unpack that? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So some agents you can talk to a client and they'd be like, "Oh, my roof was replaced 2 years ago." They put that in there. Everything seems fine for the first month. Then the client's going to get a note, "Hey, why is my price going up?" Well, that inspection, the carrier, we came out, looked at your home. It's much older than what you said. So to have that discount and your rate to not change, we need to have that proof to identify that. Some carriers now won't even let us issue anymore because so much of that was going on that now they're requiring proof to even get that policy locked in.
Wow. Well, and then just to quickly introduce here, we've got Ina Kyle with Realty Austin who wanted to come on and ask a specific question, so we don't want to leave you stuck in the corner
I
here. What
wanted
was
to-
your particular question that you had for Chase with Goosehead Insurance
I'll get
here?
to this in a minute, but I wanted to go back to, you said you can shop your insurance. Like, at what point can you shop? Do you have to wait till it expire, like close to expiring, or can you do in the middle of the year?
Yes. So I think some clients really have a misinterpretation of what they can do. So your
Exactly.
home and your auto insurance at any point, you can shop that. That means you can change to a new provider. You can have a new rate, and then we can move forward with those two policies, your home and auto, for example, and cancel your other ones. So even if you just closed on a home and that insurance or that money for your insurance was paid in full, and you want to shop and we find a cheaper rate, we can still bill that to your mortgage company, cancel the existing policy. When you get that refund as a client, you can then put that back into your escrow account so it's not short. So you actually have a cheaper home insurance rate that's going to help you, but that's kind of how that transaction needs to happen.
Is there any downside to doing that?
Yes, sometimes the client will get that check and spend it because that is their own money.
Right.
Sometimes the downside to doing that is if that new policy doesn't get paid by the mortgage company because they have already identified that they've paid one check. So the client or the insurance agent needs to have that conversation that you found them a better rate, submit the documents as in their deck page, and get that proof over to them.
But there's no penalties or anything along those lines for shopping or anything like that?
No, a lot of clients think they're just losing some big, loyalty discount that keeps piling up and piling up. Some carriers don't really have that at all. Some do, some offer that. It's just really on the agent when it comes time for renewal that you don't have to lock in that new policy. Call them, see what they can do. If they only have one product, like a bigger carrier where that's kind of it, that's kind of where it pays to be a broker because one carrier may be horrible this upcoming renewal, but we may have some other carrier that we just got or some carrier we've had for years offer a better rate.
Gotcha. So you might be out a little bit of time, a little bit of research, but for the most part, there's no, financial repercussions or anything along those lines.
No, and I think it's just a real misinterpretation that they can't shop, that they feel like they have to wait this whole time before that shopping can happen, like on the renewal date. When if you actually come to us before then and we shop your policy a week or two out, you can actually get some more discounts for us shopping ahead of time.
That's a great information for a lot of people who don't know. I wanted to talk about, like, because I work a lot with first home buyers and they just don't know about the home insurance at all. What would you advise to do? Like, what the first thing that when you talk to a first time home buyer, what would you tell them in regards to home insurance and like to auto insurance?
Yeah. So for homes specifically, we want to see if there's been any claims on that house that they're looking to buy. So we can run what's called clue reports, which it shows just like if there's been a big water claim, a roof claim, wind claim, freezing claim, something like that, or a fire, that the seller may have not disclosed. So they don't have to disclose all the claims that have happened. So we can check to see. So if there's been a bad claim and they kind of want to not change gears on that address, we can do that before they actually get locked into that home. So that's super important. And then the roof as well. I would love for my clients not to go into buying a home that has an older roof unless they are prepared to kind of get that replaced. More often than not, the insurance company is probably going to pay for that down the road, which is totally fine. It's our job to do. But, if you can look for a home that has a better roof, you're going to get an even bigger discount for that. Because we always want to cover a roof at replacement cost value, not actual cash value.
Okay.
Actual cash value means they're going to come and incorporate for depreciation for how old that roof is. So when that happens, you may get a check for a couple $100 or maybe a few $1,000s when a roof in today's time could cost anywhere between $8,000 and $25,000. So advising on those 2 points, and then really just shopping. You have auto insurance anyways. Granted, you may be on your parents' policy, but you're buying a home. You're going to be at that address. If there's a claim and you're on your parents' policy, they could potentially not cover that because you legally own a home. You should be charged for that address where you're located at. So just having that conversation, it's probably best for them to get off their parents, and bundle everything together, because that's kind of getting their life started. They're such an adult to get this home. They should treat the insurance kind of the same way too.
Correct. So to bundle with the same company is very important and makes them save.
Yes. And so we understand there's certain situations where your auto and home may not be the same carrier, but some of our carriers that we partner with, like one will offer still a discount because you have the home with us. So it's just important for us to kind of shop that market for them and see what all discounts they can qualify for.
So you, like Goosehead is like a broker company, right?
Mm-hmm.
You being a broker will obviously help them to shop for car insurance as well.
Yeah. And then imagine having that relationship where you're used to that local guy, but then you move states. Well, what are you going to do now? Who are you going to trust? Another local person you're going to have to meet, introduce, Well, if you're with Goosehead and you move states, well, if you move from Texas to Kentucky, for instance, I can still be your agent. We can service you from here to there, the whole process, the cars, the home, whatever the case may be. Kind of keep it simple for you. So forever, we're always shopping for you.
I mean, it sounds like bundling is the thing to do. Is there ever an instance when bundling doesn't make sense?
Just depends. I mean, if there's a client that has, let's say, like a DTI issue, and I have to take like a bigger down payment for the auto, but it gets the home rate, that can be like a sticky situation. But you kind of just communicate with your client and your loan officer on what kind of needs to be done. And as long as everything's black and white, it should be a smooth process to get that done.
And you talked about discounts. Can you tell more, like what discounts and savings opportunities are there?
Yeah. So carriers right now especially are wanting to, which I know we're in Texas, a lot of Texans don't like this, but the monitored or tracked driving. So essentially you, with your carrier, you can download the app. It selects that it's going to monitor you while you drive and operate the vehicle. And it's going to basically, with that information, give you a discount. Normally it's between 10 and 30%. So they'll pay you quite a bit if you drive carefully. You're not driving past midnight, 2 a.m., things like that. You're not driving over 80 miles per hour on the highway, something like that. But they will discount you for good driving. So it's super important, and every carrier offers that. But I see clients kind of wanting to steer clear from that just because they just don't want to be tracked. But at the end of the day, these carriers have those discounts. So it's good to ask for them. And careful driving is what we all want. No one should want to treat their car crazy.
Exactly.
You want to drive safe, drive careful. And that's kind of a discount that everyone can qualify for. There's no one that would not qualify for that discount.
What about in the home, like security systems on your windows, on your roof?
Yeah, so we at Goosehead, obviously we are a broker, so one thing we can shop for you too is those security systems.
Okay.
So we can set up installation. So if you're a client moving from California to Texas, like a lot of people are, we can set up the utilities, the security system, all that before they get into the home. That way it's already set up. They can move in with AC versus moving in with a hot house that's been sitting.
Yeah. I have a couple more, I think.
Well, roll with them. I
Yeah.
mean, you're in here with your notepad and everything. I mean, go for it.
Yeah. Like, what are their main insurance endorsements they should look out for when shopping for insurances? Compare apples to apples.
Yeah. So one thing that I always like to recommend, it would be additional replacement cost. Some carriers may have that name different, but you can always ask your agent, hey, do I have this additional replacement cost? And what it is if your house is insured for $400,000 and there's a terrible hurricane that comes through and all the homes in your neighborhood are destroyed, getting all of those rebuilt all at the same time may be a timely process. Cost of materials could go up. And if we get to that $400,000 mark and we're like, oh my gosh, we still have to put the roof on the house, and money's just tight because of everything that's going on, we can dip into that endorsement, that additional replacement cost. And normally it can be between 20 and 50% depending on the carrier. Some carriers offer 25, some offer 45. It just depends on which one you use. But it's important because that is additional money that's given to you that can help you kind of as a safety net, keep you in that position. Now, some clients are like, well, Chase, why wouldn't I just go ahead and add that on to my coverage A and just be done with it? You totally can. But me as an agent, that would just be straight across the board, just charging you more premium. And that if your deductible limits are set at a percentage amount, it's going to be they're going to be higher based on that coverage percentage.
Okay.
So I'd have that conversation with my clients. Hey, we can keep the coverage at 400 and keep your deductibles at this, 1% or 2% mark, whichever they're comfortable with, and then add this endorsement just as another level of safety. And it's going to save them a little bit of money too.
What about flood areas? Because we have a lot of flood areas here.
Yes, and those zones change. So a lot of clients
Exactly.
think that they're going to be locked into that price,
Yeah.
year over year for as long as they live there. Those zones can change and fluctuate, and that is nothing that I can control. Those are kind of monitored by the government. So all I can do is run not clue reports,
It's
the
FEMA.
FEMA
FEMA
reports,
report, yeah.
and then get a flood zone determination.
Correct.
And that's going to give me a map of your house that I can actually send over to the realtor, to the client, let them know. If it's in a specific zone where to close on the loan, that they're going to have flood insurance, we can make sure that that's set up in place too.
Okay.
And that those clients are aware before they get locked into that house if they want to. Be like, this one's in a rougher zone than the other one.
That's what I do for my clients. I always check if it's in the flood zone or not. And sometimes I see people check, sellers check the mark like they have a flood insurance, but it's not in the flood zone. Did they just get sold on the flood insurance, or did it maybe it changed?
So it just depends on the client. I'll have some that are completely price focused. That's the last thing they want. I'll have some that they want me to at least check every box and give them a quote for that so they can see the pricing and make that decision. I had a specific one agent in our office had a guy in Dallas, a realtor actually, not in a flood zone. And 1 week his house flooded 3 different times.
Oh, wow.
So, we don't really know.
happens.
So
Yeah,
it
it
does
does
happen.
happen,
So
yeah.
some people that just have that urge,
Yeah.
just send them the quote, kind of offer your best advice, let them know they're not in a high zone or they're in a high zone, and then kind of just guide them on that process. But I will always leave that up to the client because when it happens, like, you don't want to be in that position. So I would recommend purchasing that if possible. Now, if you're out in the middle of Lubbock, you may not need it. It may not happen, but we can obviously give you a quote.
Yeah. And how much more expensive is it? Is it like
It honestly depends. Somewhere like here in Austin, you're looking at anywhere between 400 and 500, maybe
Okay.
400 and 600. Somewhere down in Houston, they can be pretty pricey, between like 1,800 and like $3,000.
And that's
Wow.
annually, right?
Yes, and that's
Yeah.
annually. And those you cannot get a refund for. Flood insurance you cannot get a refund for. So once that's paid, it's paid. That is just so clients can't be like, oh, it's hurricane season, get the flood insurance, and then cancel it. It's locked in and that's paid.
okay? Gotcha.
Mhm.
Shifting to investors, I just talked to somebody who's an investor, and his house burned down, and he had a tenant in there, and the tenant forgot.
Was everyone okay?
Yeah, she was not at the home.
Okay.
She was not at the house while
Okay.
it happened, but she didn't have coverage as a tenant. So I want you to talk more about like how important it is to check on your tenants and their coverage every year because they have to renew, and then how are the landlords covered if they get the specific landlord insurance?
Yes. So as the investor, I would always recommend, if you're going to do like a background check or a credit check on your clients that may potentially own that, then you might as well require them to get insurance, because in the event that something crazy happens, like no one expected the Texas freeze, no one was ready, and a lot of people had minor insurance claims, but at the end of the day, some people didn't have the insurance coverage to cover themselves. So I would always recommend it, just because at the end of the day, that client is going to be covered from certain things that you're requiring them to have. So you can make them have the water coverages, you can make them have, because you are going to be the owner of the home, require that. They're going to honor that when they sign up. They're going to have it, and it's going to have to be paid monthly or annually, which honestly, if you put it in the requirements that sign the lease, they'll do it that way. I myself had a claim where that happened, and I was renting and had the water coverage. Thank gosh. All my clothes were soaking wet from that ice storm and nasty, but I got everything replaced, luckily, for having that insurance. As the investor as well, however they have the property covered, and I can't speak on every single policy, but how they should have it would be a DP3 special coverage. And this is going to cover the building, the roof, and if they have personal property like the oven, dishwasher, washer, and dryer. Some tenants don't, or some investors don't. They require their tenants to have that in place. You can offer that coverage as well. And then 2 other things would be any vandalism coverage or theft, because that stuff could happen in a tenant situation. So I always recommend those for my investors, because I've seen that stuff happen. I've seen some pretty bad claims happen, and those things are just solely important to have because at the end of the day, you may not live anywhere near that property.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go to bed realizing that everything's going to be okay, it's covered
Correct.
properly, and your tenants are going to have that coverage if something happens.
Correct.
So I would obviously, before having them sign that lease, put an insurance requirement in there because it's only going to save them at the end of the day and help your investor kind of sleep at night that they have that.
Did your investor's tenant not have like renter's coverage, and so all of their personal belongings are not covered, right?
Exactly. Plus, I mean, the insurance of the landlord, they have to cover all the damages, and they cannot go after because there's no insurance after the tenant's insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So they could split the cost for the damages or whatever.
Oh, I see. So, but in regards to the actual property itself, his property is going to get repaired, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's covered. In addition to that,
So what's really the problem? It's just kind of like a shame if you're the person living in the property and you don't have the renter's insurance, and of course they probably have belongings,
yeah,
furniture,
They're
her
closed.
belongings are gone.
Yeah.
Right.
They're completely
and there's nothing that
damaged.
she's going to really be able to do about it because she didn't have any insurance.
Correct.
But then the landlord, he's safe, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's getting fixed. The house is going to get repaired, painted.
But there's
all
a
of that.
specific, I heard like there's a specific landlord insurance that includes a paragraph that says if the tenant cannot live at this property at the moment, he's covered for the mortgage payments.
Yes, that would be
So-
called loss of rents coverage. That would be included on your policy. Some carriers can let you exclude it where it's not
Correct.
covered, but you
Mhm.
can have that covered on there. And so it would be however long it would take to fix the damages, their payments, as in rent payments, would be covered because you have the policy to cover that.
And is that on a traditional policy, or is that like an added endorsement?
It would be an added endorsement just because those dwelling policies are pretty much everything's optional besides the coverage. So as
Mhm.
the agent, you are checking those and recommending those.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, they would be left blank. So it would be up to the agent as an experienced agent to write
To
that
point
policy
this
to
out.
correctly.
Yeah.
Because every home insurance policy has that loss of use coverage. If your roof's ripped off your house, you as a client can't stay there. We're going to repair it. We'll put you in a hotel, condo,
Mhm.
villa, so you could keep your daily routine, go to work, cook, clean, whatever you need to do, and we'll replace the roof. And no matter how long it takes, it's going to go up to a year in coverage for most policies, but we're going to try to get that done as quickly as possible for you to get you back in that home. And that's just a better experience as an insurance company, getting you back in there quicker and fixing it quicker. So the last thing we want to do is leave you in that, that condo.
Exactly.
But every home policy is going to have that coverage, but your dwelling policies for those investors, it's optional. So you need to make sure you have that on there. It's really,
At
really
least
important.
talk about it.
100%. At least talk about it. And I promise, just put it in the lease agreement to have your tenants have in renter's insurance policy. And you could kind of keep your hands out of it by being like, go to your auto provider and they'll offer a bundle. It's going to save you money, and then it's looking like you're even trying to offer them something as good advice, which in turn would only help them.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I would do in that situation too.
Well, and they're not crazy expensive. I know
No.
that. I mean,
And
they're
you
only
can
a couple $100 a year.
Yeah, and you can do them monthly, and it pays off, and it really
Mhm.
does pay off.
Yep. So another reminder to check on your tenant's insurance and each year when they have to renew, to
Oh, yeah.
remind them and just
And-
to ask for a copy, obviously.
Yeah, and especially if you have multiple dwellings in other states, you
Mhm.
need to be shopping those because things happen all the time. Carriers are always changing their rates. At least I would say every quarter something's going to happen with the carrier, whether it's going up or down, or they're offering some new discount or something. They're trying to keep the market entertained with everything that's going on
Yeah.
because right now is a really hard market for insurance.
Why
It's
is
just
that?
so many bad losses, so many policies wrote incorrectly, and
Plus all the fires. that
inevitably
come.
fires. Yeah, well,
Well,
Texas.
that's part of the losses.
Yeah, Texas has. I mean, we're affected by pretty much everything but a mudslide, I think, and volcanoes. So,
Knock on wood.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully they don't come. But in the event, that those claims happen, that's why the insurance policy is so important. Yes, you want to kind of get it done, and people want to forget about it. So if you want to have that attitude, make sure it's completely concrete. Have that conversation with an experienced agent. Make sure you're shopping, and us as Goosehead can literally do the entire process for you and offer as many quotes as you need. I mean, we partner with so many carriers. We're continually adding new carriers because of the market, how things are changing. You know, a lot of carriers want package business, so you know, there's some carriers out there that are that don't have another line of business. They're solely one product. So we're grabbing those up too to try to just help the market, because Goosehead has a lot of clients come in. We just want to make sure we're getting everyone taken care of that we can.
Well, I know part of the added cost is obviously inflation. I mean, everything in general, not just insurance, is more expensive. And you know what I tend to worry about, obviously I don't do insurance, but I think about clients that are shopping for it, especially when they're buying a home, or I've even seen people, I'm guilty of, you know, buying a car and then not even thinking about what the increase of the insurance was going to be until like I'd already bought the thing. And of course it's like I was able to afford it, but I was a little surprised at, looking at that additional premium. And so do you find that now with things being more expensive that people are trying to cut corners a little bit more? Or are they kind of just taking it on the chin like, all right, well, I guess it is what it is. I want to have good coverage. Like, what seems to be your experience?
I would. It's kind of a 50-50 split. The people that are trying to cut the corners, inevitably, the price increases. It's coming. Whether they are changing to one carrier for 6 months they're not running reports, just some like online carrier, they're going to be shopped in 6 more months. So that's the benefit of being with a broker that we can shop for you. Is these rates are high. You need to shop because there's so much more importance in seeing other products out there and not getting in that state of mind where I need to be with this guy for the long haul. Now, granted, if you had a carrier that repaired your house, a big claim, and they paid out, I understand the loyalty. But at the end of the day, your finances are going to come first, and it pays to shop. And you don't have to burn a bridge changing from one carrier to the other. You're allowed to go back to any other carrier that you leave, just to kind of touch on that. So it's always in your best interest just to shop like you would for anything else.
Are there any other pain points you run into when you're dealing with clients outside of, cost and coverage that would just make your job a lot easier if you didn't have to deal with it?
I would say just being understanding of the process. We want to not only get you the best coverage and the best quotes out there, but it's gonna be in a manner that we want you to sit there. We want you to listen to we're gonna go through A to B on the home insurance all the way through the policy. Same thing with the auto. We're gonna make sure you're covered for everything. It's gonna be a different experience than most people have had before with insurance. But at the end of the day, they're going to know what they're paying for. They're going to know what they're buying into, and they're going to know me and our service team that comes with that. So I think the understanding that this one phone call could take some time, but it's going to be worth it at the end of the day, because you're going to have been shopped on the market. You're going to have some more information than you knew before, and you're going to know what coverages kind of that you have. Because we all have the piece of paper, and a lot of people don't know what certain coverages mean or the words mean. That's what you need to be asking your agent before you get into that deal or into that policy is those questions.
Yeah, are you running into issues with things like AI and online stuff and everything like that? I mean, for real. I mean, envision that. I know in my business, there's a lot of people out there that would love the opportunity to cut the loan officer out of the transaction. They don't want to talk to somebody. They want to go online. They want to fill everything out, and they want to be able to deal with it that way. But unfortunately, it creates a lot of issues. So I would envision that you're running into some of the same problems.
Yeah, there's some other platforms out there on Google where you can go on there. They're saying they're going to shop your insurance for the best rate, and all it really does is, once you put it in, it's selling your information and then giving you to every single other carrier out there, and they're going to call you and try to sell you.
Right, now you're getting 900 phone calls.
Exactly. Whereas on the flip side with us, we're putting in your information. We're manually shopping those policies for you and going in and fine-toothing everything, and then presenting those. So that's another benefit. You're not sharing your information with someone else that's sharing your information.
Right.
All crazy like the internet can be. But some of those carriers, they may offer you a good product, but at the end of the day, and I think you would agree, having that physical interaction, whether it's on the phone or virtual, however, but like with a person that has been in the industry, that knows what they're talking about, that sees not only ups, but the sees downs too, and knows the market and knows what can happen, that can offer some good advice, is way more important than just talking to the computer AI about, whatever it could be.
Right. Well, and I find with the online stuff, typically it's a garbage in, garbage out type of thing.
Yeah.
So if the AI doesn't ask the right questions, all of a sudden you're getting a policy that might not be the best fit, and then you're like, well, they never asked, or unfortunately, there's bad guys out there that might try to lie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now they're being dishonest and kind of to your point, like, oh, the roof, yeah, it's brand new, and then all of a sudden an adjuster goes out there 30 days after, the policy's been bound, and it's like, this roof is definitely not new. It's 25 years old, and now your premium's going up.
Yeah, and it's going to mess with, the balance that's in the escrow account. And that's, you could set yourself up from failure from day one and going into your first new purchase. And that's the last thing you want to do.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that premium's not going to change. It's been paid for in full. We don't have to worry about it for the year. The policy was correct. And like you said, every question was asked, from the dogs to the, from the pools to everything that you have. We're asking those questions because certain carriers can completely deny a claim just based on a dog that you have in the house.
The
Right.
breed.
Yeah, just solely on that.
Mhm.
And those claims are terrible. They're devastating. You just don't want to get in those. And if your agent's not asking those questions, you as a consumer need to be like, well, hey,
Yeah.
Chase over there asked me X, Y, and B. What about you? Why aren't you asking these questions? And they're gonna be like, they need to be asked. And if your agent's not doing that and having that process, that call with you, reviewing the coverages with you, and able to answer those questions, and I understand people may not know every answer, but they need to get back with you in
Right.
a timely manner too.
So what exactly do you ask? Can you go for is it
Yeah,
the list
yeah.
along?
No, you're good. I mean, we're asking about pools, dogs, and trampolines because all those are liability risks. Some carriers just don't want them, don't accept them, just because they've had really bad claims and they see how bad things can be. The other things could be your roof age, if your plumbing's been repaired, your electricity, the wiring, the heating and AC, if that's been repaired. All of those things can qualify you or disqualify you from a carrier. So there's hoops that we have to jump through to get you qualified. And if you may not qualify for them, you could call them as a normal consumer on your own and completely waste your time. Whereas I could be like, oh, I know they're not going to qualify for this one. I just need to move on to the next best carrier and kind of fill out that option. But it's important to ask those questions because you don't want to get a policy. The premiums seem great, the closing go great, everyone's happy. Then there's this one claim, one thing that happens, and they're not covered because they have X, Y, and B that's wrong that carrier doesn't want. And it's just because the questions were answered incorrectly or not asked. And so a lot of people want quotes quickly, and you fill out a quote and they're like, oh well, we can go back and edit it. You should do it right as quick as you should do it right the first time. The first time through, that way nothing changes. It's a real live number. It's something that you can present on. It's strong and it's not going to change unless I and the client have that conversation and kind of work the policy up or work the policy down. But it's definitely important to have all those questions answered because or like the roof, you could have a metal roof. Some carrier may not want that at all.
Oh, wow.
Just because of it could have cosmetic damage from hail, and obviously the roof's still in working condition, but it looks bad. Well, you as a client, you're like, well, I don't want my house to look bad. Well, technically, the roof's fine. There's no leaks. There's no damage that's causing your house harm. It just has some dents. So some carriers can offer coverage for that. Some can completely exclude it. So that's an important question to have if you have metal roofs.
Yeah.
One thing. And there's a lot of other little things that I could kind of go into, but they matter. They definitely matter because the underwriters at these carriers love to say no. They love to say no. And when it works great. And that's when the client's happy and it's a great experience. But you don't want to have some policy seem okay and then it come back and not be okay. That's why it's so important to do it the first time.
Yeah.
You're crushing it on the questions.
And then I have another question.
Let's go. Let's go.
You like that?
Yeah.
If clients decide to do any upgrades and they remodel entire house, do they need to tell you as their carrier anything about what they've done and replaced or whatever?
Yeah. And me as the agent's just going to be like, okay, is it like interior cosmetic? What's going on? And I'm just going to sit there and let the client let me know what they're doing to the house. If we're moving any like big load-bearing walls or taking out the garage and turn it into another room or something like that, we're going to need to know because your carrier may not cover you while you're doing those edits, depending on what it is. But the thing is, there's a policy that we write that can help, like that will offer that coverage during that time. So it's important. If you're editing the house and moving some big beams and things like that, then we need to get you a different policy form because your home insurance may not like that, just because you're kind of going in and doing that stuff. But the good thing is after the fact, we can update. If you're updating the plumbing in there and everything, that's going to help your insurance and get that rate down too, because you're making those updates.
Okay.
So it's super important to kind of keep us in the weeds on that, especially because some clients will be like, oh, I have a big backyard, I have nothing back there now, but they go to Home Depot and get one of those big shed things for all their their lawn mowers and things like that. Well, you already have some coverage built in on your home insurance policy for that. So, but by us knowing by you giving me a call and letting me know how much you paid for it, bottom line, I can let you know if you already have enough coverage or if we need to tweak it and add it some. Because you just bought that, you're going to want that covered. It's a nice thing to have, and we can do that for you. So it's just good to always keep us in the loop on things. And, being an agent, my clients can call, text, or email me. We do have a service team, too, that you can call or email or text as well. We just understand that there's people doing all types of jobs, and there's all kinds of different facets to reach out, and we want to offer a form for everyone.
Like, I don't know, replacing the windows, like making your house more energy efficient. They will probably help them with the monthly payment.
Oh yeah. And making those updates on the windows or like your roof, for instance, it's going to be a massive discount.
Or insulation, right? Aiding insulation.
Yep. Or changing like the siding of your home. If you had one type of like older siding to an updated new siding, you may get a bigger discount from the carrier because it's more, it's like a better structure. It's built better at that point. Nice. So all things to definitely just phone call or email to the agent because you're going to get a good answer and a concrete answer that you need to have.
Okay.
I'm letting you roll. I mean,
I don't want
don't let me slow you down. Next time I'm going to go get a drink of water and come back.
I think that's it.
No way.
I have one more and I forgot it now.
Well, if you think of it, you let us know. And
but you're good. Yeah.
Outside of insurance, is there I typically kind of bring it to the other side of the table. If you don't have any questions, it's totally cool. But is there anything you've run into that, would be worth asking a real estate agent or a lender as well?
Yeah. As far as us, if you all can have that conversation about the claims and the roof on how important that is, that's going to immediately let the client know that they need to talk about that with me.
Yeah.
And it's just going to kind of keep them in tune with, hey, discounts, we want to get you the best price. If you all can figure out what it is on the inspection, some documents you may already have, or just get those over to me, it's only going to help.
I'm a little surprised at the amount of current homeowners that are purchasing right now that are like in shock and awe about insurance rates going up, where I feel like it's talked about and it's kind of like common, and then I have to check myself, and I think, well, maybe it's because I'm kind of part of the business, but I talk to other people and they're like, yeah, my insurance rate went up. But then you find somebody who's buying and they're kind of almost like, I'm so confused. Why are things so expensive? And like, are you running into that with, people who currently own that are purchasing another property?
Oh yeah. And they're not, the first time I bought my house, it was X amount.
Right.
I'm like, trust me, I was like, that story is true for everyone.
Right.
I was like, and it will be true for you buying this time. And if you buy another, it's going to continually be true. But the one thing I have is, the old analogy I always give, you're someone that bought 20 years ago, probably hated the price, but now they have the equity and all this in their home, and they're such a better position. Like, it makes sense. It makes sense. And the one thing that I could say is getting approved with, a loan officer and talking with a good real estate agent is the best thing, because two people that are already on the same page and you getting the best advice from them is only going to help the process with me be, seamless. Because you all are going to have almost every answer that we need. So then it's essentially handing off a client that is so warm. It's so they're ready to learn almost by the time they get to me. And at that point, by the time they get to closing, everything's, they know what their insurance is. They know what their monthly payments are. They're excited. They're ready to go. And that's kind of like a perfect process. And obviously there's sometimes things pop up, but it's just always to have that clear communication, I think, is super important. And you get that when good people work together.
Yeah. Totally.
I remember my question.
I see that. I'm waiting for you to do your thing.
How often do you see people in the end deciding not to have an insurance? Because like when you finance a house, you are obviously by the lender, you are like obligated to get an insurance. But then you pay off your mortgage and you're like, okay, how many people decide not to get one?
I would say it's probably maybe 5 to 7%. There's some people just in some areas that are financially well off that are, they're going to self-insure. That may make sense to them. In no way, shape, or form would I ever have that conversation. Like, I'd have that conversation only as a listener, but I would always recommend having that insurance policy, just because you never know what could happen in life, and that's just a personal thing. I would always recommend it. It makes sense. You could have. You could potentially have insurance on almost everything that you buy, and I understand a lot of people don't have insurance on some things that they buy, but the big assets in your life, the things that you may only do once or twice, like a home, it's important to have that covered at all times. You know, unless you're some type of superstar, then I get it. I understand. The money's there.
Whatever happens, I can
Only
buy.
people I've ever seen that self-insure is when they're self-insuring houses that cost like I've seen some where people have properties that are only worth like 25,000,
Yeah.
like really low. They're
Okay.
they're kind of beat up, and you know they're like, I'm not gonna pay for insurance on this property because I could legitimately replace it for 25 grand, and they're kind of
Yeah.
like,
Okay.
what's the point?
I know some investors in like in Detroit that have
Right.
properties like that, or then investors in Lower Louisiana that it's just like they've been hit so many times that it's just by choice.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason. And with Detroit, the whole street is the same way. So there's just they're just kind of
Gotcha.
stuck in that.
Okay. I'm done with mine.
Oh, okay. Well, outside of that, is there anything insurance related that we didn't touch on that you kind of wanted to chat a little bit about?
Honestly, I think we did a really good job. We went pretty in depth, but I mean, at the end of the day, I think just as a client, I mean, we're so picky about our outfits, our hair, how we look. You should take the same care and steps with your insurance policy. The last thing you want to do is think you're okay with a bare bones auto insurance policy, have an
Yeah.
accident and something
Mhm.
bad happens where you're getting sued or something that you never thought could ever happen, and it's just because how policies wrote or you don't have the policy wrote correctly. It's just important to make sure that you shop and check on those things and make sure you're working with someone that cares. And you should be able to have that initial thought right when you call them, and you should be able to feel that conversation. And if it's warm, welcome, they're answering your questions, then it's probably a great person to work with. But if they're kind of pushing you off or busy, you just be real with them. I'd be like, hey, I care about this, and let them know because it matters at the end of the day. It really does.
Well, and I've never found an insurance agent that didn't want to have a conversation or potentially, quote another policy and everything along those lines. So it doesn't take that long. And, I'll leave the floor to you on this one. But from what I understand, I mean, anybody who connects with you and wants to shop their current insurance, it's free to do that.
Completely free. And whether you want to have a conversation with me on the phone, I even have like a little link that I can send you to fill out if you're busy at the time or doing it while you're working. I understand. It completely makes sense. It kind of reverts me back to our conversation about just clear communication. We'll be able to get it done whenever it needs to happen for that client. I understand that. Sometimes I'm busy at certain times, and it makes sense for me to do something at a different time. I'll walk through those hoops with my client and make sure to get them taken care of because it's free. It's almost effortless for us to complete these quotes for our clients. We just need the real data, that real information, your prior or your current deck pages, or if you're a new purchase, just the right information. Because the only thing I want to do is get you covered correctly. The price and the difference between the price and that's the last thing I'm thinking about. I want to make you happy because you've been most likely referred by someone that I trust. I want to make them just as happy as I want to make you because I want to keep that relationship happy and our work, concrete and solid. So that's something that, I was just kind of touch on.
I love it. Well, outside of that, I wrap up every single segment with you just kind of looking into the camera and giving us your 2-minute elevator pitch so that we can cut it and give you something sexy for later on, and then we'll wrap it up. We're pushing 50 minutes now.
Yeah, perfect. That time flew by. I can't even believe it. Well, I guess what I could say to the camera is, if you live somewhere or drive something, you can be a client of ours. Goosehead, we really take care of you. From any type of policy, we can get you quotes and we can get those things bound and taken care of for you. Based on the conversation, I would recommend really listening to the podcast because it's some good tidbits of information. But at the end of the day, the thing that you need to take away is shopping your insurance is important. The last thing that you want to do is be overpaying for something that you have to pay for. You'd rather have some discounts or you'd rather have a cheaper policy with the same great coverage or better. And getting to that point is by shopping with Goosehead Insurance and myself. And I really, really value the conversations that I do have because you never know what you're going to hear. You never know what people have been through. And it's good to label those pain points and make sure that we can stand up to that and make sure we put you at ease as well because your coverage is just as important as it is to you, as it is to myself, and we want to make sure we write it that way too. And that's kind of my elevator pitch.
Awesome.
Killed it.
Oh, you killed it.
Thank you.
Well, let me chop them up good
Good
too,
job.
so it'll look all sexy.
Perfect. Well, I was super, super excited. That was so much fun.
Yeah, man.
So much fun.
Well, it's like working out. You can't just do this one. We got to have you in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. I've had people be like, oh, man, there's so much more I want to talk about. And I'm like,
Yeah.
we can do that.
Come back again, yeah.